Okay, so tomorrow's quiz. All right, 6 questions, no calculators or anything like that, but everything highlighted at the top, guys, you need to know. You need to know the distance formula, you need to know the midpoint formula, you need to know slope, you need to know the equation of a circle, you need to know point slope form, slope intercept form, and you need to know the difference between parallel and perpendicular lines. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of each kind. Just kind of, if you guys have questions, stop me as we go through. Just kind of follow along. One thing I will say, and I've caught some of your mistakes as you guys go through WebAssign and you're asking me questions, I would write your points on top of each other. It helps to lessen mistakes if you have your points on top of each other. So 7, -1, and then 2 and -11. So 2, -11, right? If we're going to find the distance, you keep your x's together, you keep your y's together. So your distance formula, get it set up. You have a minus sign in the parentheses. Just make sure you square each parenthesis, and then you have a plus sign in the middle. So it doesn't matter whether you do 7 - 2 or 2 - 7. I'm just going to say 7 and 2. And then I have -1 and -11. Does not matter what order, just as long as you keep them together, you're good to go. So as we break down, as we simplify, 7 - 2 is 5, right? 5 squared. Plus -1 minus a negative, that's going to give me plus. So -1 and 11 is 10, right? So then I have 25 plus 100. And I get the square root of 125. Now, before I circle my answer and I say, okay, I'm good to go, I'm done, what do I need to do? I need to simplify. I've got to break down. So I'm going to say, okay, 125. Does 2 go into 125? No. Does 3? No. Does 5? Yes, 5 goes in 25 times. 5 goes into 25 5 times. So simplified, guys, your distance here is I can take out one pair of 5, so it's 5, and then a square root of 5 is left over inside. That is full credit. You've got to simplify all the radicals. And then in order to find the midpoint, you just take the x's, add them, divide by 2, so 7 plus 2 divided by 2. Take the y's, add them, and divide by 2. And you write your midpoint, guys, as a point. So 7 plus 2 is 9. 9 over 2 doesn't simplify. If you want to make it into a mixed number, you can, but you don't have to. And then -1 and -11 is -12. -12 divided by 2 is -6. So your midpoint is right here. You write it as a point. Anybody have any questions? I'm going to move ahead because we're going to end up doing the distance and midpoint formula in some other things. So I'm just going to go ahead and move ahead. Now, if you guys have a question, it says find the equation of a circle with the given endpoints of the diameter. It'll say of the diameter. What they're telling you, guys, draw yourself a picture. They're telling you that you have 2 points on the circle. Doesn't matter where you put them. Just put them across from each other. -1, 7. And it says that these are the endpoints of the diameter. That means it goes from one side to the other of the circle through the middle. All right, our equation of a circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals radius squared. Remember, our h and k are the center of our circle, correct? So we need to have the center and we need to have the radius in order to write the equation of a circle. If I have those 2 points that are on the end, how do I find the middle? What formula would I use? The midpoint. So I'm going to say, okay, I have 1 plus -1 divided by 2. And I have 3 plus 7 divided by 2. 3 plus 7 divided by 2. What is 0 over 1? 0. And then I have 7 plus 3 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So my center is at 0, 5. So I know my center is right here at 0, 5. Now I have to find the radius. The radius is from the center to a point on the circle. So my radius is here, and my radius is also here. You can find the distance from either endpoint to the center. It doesn't matter. I'm going to use 1, 3, and 0, 5. So I'm going to use 1, 3, and 0, 5. If you use the other endpoint, that would be fine. So x's and y's. So I'm going to have 1 minus 0 squared plus 3 minus 5 squared. Everybody with me? What's 1 minus 0? 1. So 1 squared. Plus, what's 3 minus 5? Negative 2. So I'm left here with 1 plus negative 2 squared is 4. I have my radius is the square root of 5. Now I have what I need to write the equation of my circle. I have my center and I have my radius. So we're going to plug it in just like that. We're going to say, okay, x, this is my h, and this is my k. So I have x minus 0 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals the square root of 5 squared. Now, how can we simplify that? Do I have to write x minus 0? No, I can write that as x squared. Then I have plus y minus 5 squared. And what happens, guys, when you square a square root? It cancels. This becomes equals 5. And there's your equation of your circle. So when you're given the endpoints of the diameter, you need to find the center and you have to find the radius. Now, in a question like 8, 9, 10, 11, we'll do all of these because they're pretty quick. To find the center, remember, we take it out of the parentheses. When you take it out, what happens to the signs? They change. So the center of this circle here, what's the opposite of negative 3? Positive 3, so it's 3 comma what? 0. What is my radius? Where'd you get 4 from? Square root of 16. Good. So 10. What's my center? Negative 3 comma 4. And what's my radius? 5. Great. All right, look at 9. What's my center? 0 comma 2. And what's my radius? Square root of 40. Okay. Can I leave it as square root of 40? Yes or no? No, we have to break everything down, guys. So 2 goes into 40 20 times. 2 goes into 20 10 times. 2 goes into 10 5 times. I can take out one pair of what? Okay, so take out that pair of 2s. And then what am I left with inside? 10. You must break down the radicals. And then look at 11. What's my center for 11? Negative 1, negative 2. And what's my radius? 6. Do we ever have a negative radius? No, because you don't measure length negatively. Okay? Anybody have any questions? All right, I'm going to spend a little time here because you're going to have a question that's going to ask you to write a line, parallel, perpendicular, that sort of thing. We've got to remember what that means, guys. Number 13 is asking to write the equation of a line that passes through and is parallel to. What does parallel mean? Parallel is same slope. So the way that you should do this is you determine the slope, whether it's changing, moving, excuse me, the equation around, whether it's you have 2 points and you're finding the slope, something like that. But in this case, guys, you're trying to isolate y. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. I have 5y equals negative 4x minus 3. And then I divide everything by 5. And I get y equals negative 4/5 x minus 3/5. Does that negative 3/5 mean anything to me? No. The only thing that matters is this slope. So if I'm going to write a line that is parallel to this line, what is the slope that I'm going to use? Negative 4/5. And this is the line or the point that they're telling me it goes through. They give me an x, they give me a y. So we're going to take that information and plug it into point slope form. So when I go into point slope form, I'm going to say y minus, what is my y value? 13. So y minus 13 equals, the slope is negative 4/5 times x minus, what's my x value? Negative 5. So minus a negative makes it a positive. Very good. Anybody have any questions about that? Every single time we're going to do it the same way. We're going to plug in a point slope form, and then we're just going to simplify. So I'm first going to distribute. I take that negative 4/5, goes here and here. So y minus 13 equals negative 4/5 x. What? What's negative 4/5 times 5? Yep, it's negative 20 over 5, which becomes what? Negative 4. You don't have to simplify in the middle of the problem, but at some point you need to simplify at the end. So now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 13 to both sides. So I have y equals negative 4/5 x. What's negative 4 plus 13? What is it? Positive 9. And there is your equation. Yeah, it's going to say on the quiz, it'll say, write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. I think the easiest thing to do is just put it in point slope and then solve algebraically. Some of them was in point slope, and then some of them made it be in standard form, right? Yeah. Super fun. Now, I'll tell you exactly how I want it. Now, how is 14, 15 different? Looks the same, but what does that word perpendicular tell me about my slope? It's opposite signs and reciprocal. So I need to switch the signs and I need to flip. So I'm going to first solve for y here. I'm going to get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. So negative 8y equals negative 5x plus 3. And then I'm going to divide by negative 8. Everybody with me? So this becomes y equals, what's a negative divided by a negative? A positive. So you have 5 over 8x minus 3 over 8. This is the only thing I care about, is that positive 5/8. What is the perpendicular slope to positive 5/8? Negative 8 over 5. Good. And then the point that they told me was 2, negative 3. You know what? Let's make this 2, negative 3 over 2. Right? Change this to a fraction. Might see a fraction on your quiz. So let's just work with it a little bit. All right, here's my x and here's my y. So I'm going to go into point slope form. I have y minus, what's the y value? Negative 3 over 2. So minus the negative is going to give me plus. So y plus 3 over 2 equals my slope of negative 8/5 times x minus 2. Everybody with me? Okay, so let's distribute this negative 8/5. So I have y plus 3 over 2 equals negative 8/5 x. Negative times a negative is a positive, so I have plus 16 over 5. And then what is the last thing I need to do? What's my last thing? Subtract 3 over 2, right? So minus 3 over 2, minus 3 over 2. So y'all, I need a common denominator. Y equals negative 8 over 5x. What's a common denominator between 5 and 2? 10. Perfect. So 2 times what gives me 10? 5. 2 times 5 on the bottom, so 5 on top. Negative 3 and 5 is negative 15. 5 times 2 is 10. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. 16 times 2 is 32. So you end up with 32 minus 15. What is that? 17? Positive or negative? So you have plus 17 over 10. And there is your line that is perpendicular. Remember, parallel lines have same slope. Perpendicular is opposite reciprocal. Yes, sir?
I'm sorry, I zoomed out. Why did you make it 3 over 2?
I just changed it to make it harder.
Oh.
Just to be a pain. Did it work? it work a little bit? All right, let's go through these. I want to make sure that we understand what we're doing. All right, we've got to be comfortable with fractions. We have to be comfortable with the way that these questions are asked, all that good stuff. So if I look here, we're going to write perpendicular and parallel for all of them. But they did not give me an equation. What did they give me? 2 points. What do you think I should do with those 2 points in order to figure out what line is going to be parallel and perpendicular? I have 2 points. I have negative 3, 2. And I have 1, 4. What are the 2 things you need to write an equation of a line? Slope. Yeah? Do I have the slope here? No. But do I have enough information to find the slope? Yes. Slope formula. y2 minus y1. x2 minus x1. They give you 2 points, guys. Find the slope. These are my x's. These are my y's. So I'm going to say 4 minus 2. If I started with 4 in the y, I need to start with what in the x? God bless you. I need to start with what? So 1 minus a negative 3. 4 minus 2 is 2. 1 minus a negative 3 gives me 4. So I end up with 1/2. Now, that tells me 2 pieces of information. If I'm going to write a parallel line, and then I'm going to write a perpendicular line, what do I do with 1/2? The parallel line, what's the slope? 1/2. Very good. What is the perpendicular slope? Negative 2 over 1. You don't have to write it over 1, but you can. Now, guys, everything else now is exactly the same. They give me the point 1/3. Is it 5? And negative 5. So we're going to do everything we've done. 1/3 and negative 5. We're going to go into point slope form. So y minus, what is my y value? Negative 5. So y minus the negative gives me plus 5 equals 1/2, which is my slope. X minus 1/3. Same thing. What do I do with the 1/2? Distribute, right? So y plus 5 equals 1/2 x. What's 1/2 times negative 1/3? 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 3 is 6. Good. And then the last thing I do is subtract that 5. So subtract the 5. I'm going to put it over 1 just so I can see. So my line here is going to be y equals 1/2 x, and then I got to figure this part out. What's the common denominator between 6 and 1? 6. Okay. So this just stays 1/6, right? What did I tell you guys last week? If there's a negative sign, what should we do? Let's bring it over, but don't forget it. That's a negative 1/6. And then here on the bottom, 1 times 6 is 6. So what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So I have negative 30. What's negative 1 and a negative 30? Negative 31 over 6. So it's minus 31 over 6. And there's your line. Now, how do we find the perpendicular one? We do the exact same thing. We're going to go through the same point, but we know that our perpendicular slope, if my parallel one is 1/2, my perpendicular is negative 2 over 1. So now we go through the same thing. I say y minus, what's the y value? Negative 5, so it's going to become plus, equals negative 2 times x minus 1/3. What do I do with that negative 2? Distribute. We just keep doing the same thing. So y plus 5 equals negative 2x. A negative times the negative is a positive. And then I have 2 times 1 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. What's the last thing I need to do? Minus the 5. It's going to be 5 over 1. So I have y equals negative 2x, and then what's a common denominator between 1 and 3? 3. So this stays 2/3. This becomes negative 15 over 3. So negative 2x, what? Minus 13 over 3. I'm not asking you to graph it. I'm not asking you to graph it. I'm not asking you to do anything other than identify all this stuff and make sure you get it written down. Does that make sense? We okay? All right, I'm going to skip the next one. I want to make sure I hit on everything here. All right, we're going to do 19 and 22. 19 and 22. If you guys are going to find the x and y intercepts, right, you have to write your answer as an ordered pair. It's when we're plugging in 0 to find x and then to find y. The easiest one to find, y'all, when you have your equation written in standard form. Are we in standard form? Yep. The constant, whatever the constant is, that's your y-intercept. So you would tell me that your y-intercept, when you plug in 0 for x, you get out negative 105 for y. Because watch, if I plug in a 0 there and a 0 there, what's 0 squared? 0 times 3. So 0 squared is 0 times 3 is 0. Minus 6 times 0. That's why your y-intercept is always the constant. Now, in order to find the x-intercept, guys, you're plugging in 0 for y. So what you're saying is 3x squared minus 6x. Bye, honey. I'll upload this in just a minute. Equal minus 105 equals 0. You are going to factor. Guys, you're going to factor tomorrow where a is not 1, okay? It's not going to be the easiest things in the world to factor, but they will factor. But you're going to have to think a little bit. So you can right now say a times c, 3 times 105, and get all the factors and stuff. But can you take out a GCF here? 105 is kind of big, but how do you know that 105 is divisible by 3? Add up. What's 1 plus 0 plus 5? It's 6. So I know I can take a 3 out of here. If I take a 3 out, then I have a 3 on the outside. I'm left with x squared minus 2x. What's 105 divided by 3? Well, if you don't know, come up here. 3 goes into 10 3 times, right? 35? So minus 35 equals 0. Now this makes your problem much, much easier to work with. Can you factor what's left over here? What are factors of negative 35 that multiply to give me negative 35, but add to give me negative 2? 7 and 5. Minus 7 plus 5. Everybody agree? Okay, so now what do? We set each piece equal to 0. So I have 3 equals 0, x minus 7 equals 0, and x plus 5 equals 0. Guys, does 3 ever equal 0? No, so that's not one. So I'm going to move 7 over, right? Add 7, so I get x equals 7. I'm going to subtract 5, and I get x equals negative 5. Now you have to write your answers as ordered pairs. What did you plug in for y so that you found out that x equals 7 and x equals negative 5? You plugged in 0. So you would say, okay, I have negative 5, comma 0, and I have 7, comma 0. These are your x-intercepts, and this is the y. On your quiz, it'll say y-intercept, give you a line. X-intercept, give you a line. You need to write it as an ordered pair. Make sure you guys see that. Everybody all right? Okay, let's look at this one. If I find the y-intercept, that should be an easy one. If I find the y-intercept, that means I plugged in 0 for x. So watch, I'm going to plug in 0 there, 0 there, 0 there. What happens when I plug in zeros for all the x's? It's 0. That's your y-intercept. That's it. Now to find the x, that's when we have to factor. So negative 6x cubed plus 20x squared plus 16x equals 0. This is a big one, huh? I see a few things that are a problem. First of all, we're leading with a what? We're leading with a negative. That means we got to get that negative out. So is there a number and or a letter that goes into all three of these terms? 2 and an x. Good. So I'm going to take out a negative 2x from everything because we don't like to lead with a negative. We don't factor with leading negatives. So when I do this, negative 6 divided by, this comes out in front, negative 6 divided by negative 2 gives me 3x squared. 20 divided by negative 2x is going to give me minus 10x. And 16 divided by negative 2 is going to give me minus 8. Everybody with me? Yes? Okay, so now we're going to factor. I still have my negative 2x out in front. That does not go anywhere. 3 times negative 8. I need factors of negative 24 that multiply to give me negative 24, but add to give me negative 10. There's two options here, 6 and 4 or 12 and 2. Now you can't tell me that they both work because they don't. The signs make a difference here. So what would it be? What would multiply to give me a negative 24, but add to give me a negative 10? 12 and 2. Good. It's going to be negative 12 and positive 2. Do I just set these equal to 0 now? What's the extra step I have to do? Yep. My a term is not 1. I need to divide each of these by 3. So I'm left with negative 2x. 12 divided by 3, perfect, x minus 4. 2 divided by 3, doesn't work out real pretty, so my 3 becomes my coefficient. I have 3x plus 2 equals 0. Guys, how many x-intercepts do I have here? 3. My highest exponent was 3, so I know I should have 3, but I set each piece equal to 0. This is a little different than the last one because the negative 2 that we took out had an x with it. So that means you're going to have an intercept at 0. X minus 4 equals 0, and 3x plus 2. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 2. I get x equals 0. I'm going to add 4. I get x equals 4. I'm going to subtract 2. I get 3x equals negative 2. Then divide by 3. I get x equals negative 2 thirds. I have 3 intercepts. So I need to write 3 ordered pairs. When I plugged in 0 for y, I got out 0 for x. Here, when I plugged in 0 for y, I got 4 for x. So it's 4 comma 0. Here, it's negative 2 thirds, comma 0. So I have 3 x-intercepts right there. And we write them as ordered pairs. Everybody with me? Yeah, we're good? Okay. So let's go down here. How do you tell if lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Parallel lines have same slope. Perpendicular has opposite reciprocal. Opposite signs, flip the function. Neither is none of those. So the way that you would show me, guys, you can't just look at this and say, oh, they're parallel. They're perpendicular. You have to show work. So the way that you would do this, write down both lines. I have 3x minus y equals negative 4. And I have negative 6x minus 2y plus 8 equals 0. Get each equation into y equals mx plus b, because then you can see the slope really well. So I'm going to add 3x here, plus 3x. I have negative y equals 3x minus 4. And then I have to do what? Divide by negative 1. Everything by negative 1. So y equals negative 3x plus 4. That plus 4 means nothing to us. So do the same thing over here. I'm going to get y by itself. So I'm going to add 6x and minus 8 from both sides. So add 6x minus 8. I have negative 2y equals 6x minus 8. Then I'm going to divide by negative 2. Everything by negative 2. And I get y equals negative 3x plus 4. This happens to be the same line. But what only thing I want you to do is just compare the slopes. The way that you should do this in your mind, guys, is ask yourself the question, are those two numbers exactly the same? Is -3 the same as -3? Yes, so parallel. If one was +3 and one was -3, what would your answer be? Neither. Good. Perpendicular has to be opposite signs and reciprocal. So make sure you guys are on top of that, please.
Do both of the signs have to be opposite?
One has to be positive, one has to be negative. Yeah.
No, so like let's say the blue side it'd be +3, -4, or does the slope just have to be negative?
The slope has to be the exact same if they're parallel.
No, but if they're perpendicular.
Opposite signs and flipped.
Okay.
I'll do an example right here. All right, same thing. Let's write our two equations. 3x, 3 over 2x minus 4y equals 1. Negative 2x minus 12y equals 3. So y equals mx plus b. We're going to subtract 3 over 2x. So negative 4y equals negative 3 over 2x plus 1. Agreed? Yes? Okay, now what do we do? Divide everything by -4. Guys, if you're dividing fractions, it's the same as what? Keep, change, flip. So this is -3 over 2 times, flip this over, it becomes -1 over 4. 2 negatives gives me a positive, so I have 3 over 8. So this is 3 over 8x minus 1/4. Again, that minus 1/4 means nothing to us. The only thing that matters is right here is 3/8. So now I'm going to come over and I'm going to say, okay, let's get y by itself. So add 2x, negative 12y equals 2x plus 3. Divide by -12. Y equals -1/6 x minus 1/4. What is the only thing that matters? The slopes. Notice how both of the intercepts are the same. Does that matter? No. The only thing that matters is the slope. Are those two numbers exactly the same? No. Are they opposite reciprocals of each other? No. So this would be neither. Take your time on a question like this. This can be very easily answered incorrectly if you guys are trying to go too fast. Compare them. Are they the same? Parallel. Are they exact opposites and reciprocals? Then they're perpendicular. If it's not those two things, then it's neither. All right? Y equals mx plus b. X plus 2y equals 5. Negative x minus 14 equals negative 2y. I'm going to subtract x from both sides. I get 2y equals negative x plus 5. Divide everything by 2. So y equals negative x over 2 plus 5 over 2. Guys, what is the slope here? What number's in front of x? There's a 1. So what is the slope here? The slope here is -1/2. Just because there's no 1 there, you can write it. So here, yeah, sure. Here, you can do one of two things. You can move the y's to the left and the x and everything to the right. Or, can you just divide everything by -2? Are you guys okay with that? And then I can rewrite this as y equals, what's a negative divided by a negative? Positive. So x over 2 plus 7. What is the slope here? What's the number that's in front of x? So this is, my slope here is 1/2. Are those two numbers exactly the same? No. Are they opposite reciprocals of each other? No. So what is this? Neither. Be careful with that, guys. Opposite reciprocal would be like you came out with y equals 2/3 x plus 7 and y equals negative 3/2x minus 4. These two numbers are opposite reciprocals of each other. The signs are different and the fractions are flipped. So this one would be perpendicular if it worked out that way. Questions? Anybody have any questions? A couple minutes. You guys want to ask any?